This is your end!
This is Visions of Mana, an absolutely gorgeous, amazing Japanese action RPG. And if you haven't played a Japanese RPG until now, I strongly suggest that you make Visions of Mana your first game in this genre. In fact, even if you have played Japanese RPGs and you are interested in the Mana series, you can really make this your very first Mana game, because you don't need to know anything about the series to play and enjoy this one. Visions of Mana is an absolutely amazing, gorgeous looking, amazingly sounding action RPG with very responsive and fun combat and some very simple, easy to understand and intuitive RPG elements. Even if you've never played an RPG before, you will understand everything about this game in no time at all and have an amazingly awesome adventure throughout its duration. In the world of Visions of Mana, every 4 years, people from all walks of life are chosen to be sacrificed and to become part of the flow of mana in order to keep the world's elements in balance and prevent natural disasters that would otherwise wipe out entire regions. And this has been going on for generations and generations, so hundreds of children, elderly, young people, regardless of their age, regardless of their occupation or their gender, they are being chosen as so-called alms of the gods and are being sacrificed in order for the world to maintain its balance. Now, what we see in the very beginning of the game is that not everybody is happy to be chosen as a sacrifice and to just leave their loved ones and their life behind for good. However, for the most part, the world sees these sacrifices and the ritual of being chosen as one is a great honor, and they wholeheartedly welcome it. However, even from the very beginning, you can sense that there is a nuance of sadness when a person is chosen to be a sacrifice, even though it is considered a great honor and is treated as a very happy occasion. This is a very tragic story wrapped up in a seemingly joyful and happy journey to the end of these people's lives. The sacrifices are guarded and led to the Mana tree by the so-called Soul Guard, which is this story's main character. And he's a very energetic young man. He's very happy in this case, very cheerful. He's a very positive person, even though he leads his best friend and clearly love interest to the Mana tree to be sacrificed.
I cannot describe how wonderful it felt to ride across the vast countryside on the back of that Pikul, together with Val on our way to the Tree of Mana. I wished that we could continue our exhilarating adventure forever and ever. If only it could be. Now and for always.
Now, what we discovered throughout the game is going to be fairly interesting. However, one issue I have with the way the story is presented is that given the game's overall tone and premise, I feel that there's just not enough character interaction, moments of bonding between the characters. This is something that the game is severely lacking, and those moments should have been fully voiced because, as we can already tell, reading the dialogue is a nightmare for me. Now, that's not to say that there are no such moments. There's some side quests that do that, but it's nowhere near as prevalent as something we see in the Tales of series or other Japanese RPGs. In fact, the Lunar games, which barely have any side content, have more intimate, more personal dialogue between the characters than this game does, and those games are so much shorter. What I love about my games is simplicity, and Visions of Mana absolutely excels in that regard. Now, as most of the games in this series are, Visions of Mana is also an action RPG, and the action is very beautiful, very intuitive, very smooth. Now, I'm not going to dive very deep into the gameplay mechanics and systems because there's plenty of YouTube videos that do this. Visions of Mana has a very simple to understand but robust class system with over 40 classes across the 5 playable characters. However, you slowly unlock these classes as you play through the game because each of the classes is tied to the element you equip on each of the characters. There's a lot of combinations and experimentation that can be done with the classes and the different skills, some of which cross over and some do not. However, you can only unlock the full potential of the class system in the game's post-game scenario. Now, this is probably not a very good thing for people who enjoy tinkering and messing about with different builds and different classes and so forth. However, it's a very well-paced system to introduce new players of action RPGs and so forth to class systems. Unfortunately, you can't really realize the game's full potential of all these different classes in your first playthrough because you have to wait until the very end game and after that post game to fully utilize all the systems and possibilities that the classes offer. And this can then, I assume, be transferred to New Game Plus, where you are free to experiment however you want with all these options and systems. Each of these classes has its own unique battle mechanics. Some of the classes are melee attackers, some are casters, healers, hybrids, and so forth. There is a lot to experiment with, a lot to play with. However, this should not deter new players from trying the game out because you are very much eased into this class system and none of it is all that mandatory on easy or normal difficulty. In fact, I found my favorite classes fairly early on in the game and I stuck to those and I overpowered pretty much all the bosses of the main game without any issues and without needing to grind either. So as far as gameplay goes, even though the options are there for more hardcore players, beginner players or those who prefer more simplistic gameplay are going to find a lot to enjoy in Visions of Mana because the game does not force all of these features and class options and gameplay options and skill options on the player. The main quests and story are easy to follow thanks to clear, very nicely designed markers that indicate where you need to go. Now, as far as side content goes, Visions of Mana is, for my taste, absolutely bloated with side content. I honestly don't understand modern game development. They are making checklists rather than actual video games. I would have personally cut the side content in half or even more because we just don't need so many irrelevant side quests. It's just filler content. Now, of course, none of these side quests are mandatory, but some do give you important rewards, such as important skill items, weapons, and so forth. And it's difficult to discern which side quests you should be focusing on and which you shouldn't, so I just ended up doing everything. I didn't hate doing the side quests, but I would have been just fine if they did not exist. I simply don't care about side content, especially when I have a hard time reading that side content. And this right here is where Visions of Mana has one glaring issue, and that is its absolute disregard for us visually impaired gamers. And what I mean by that is, well, just take a look at the dialogue and you will understand in no time at all. And I'm going to talk about that now. So what happens is, in JRPGs, we often enjoy talking to NPCs, reading their dialogue, reading their opinions, and so forth. Now, this would have been wonderful if I could actually do it as a visually impaired gamer in Visions of Mana, but unfortunately, the NPC dialogue in this game is written in very small fonts on a transparent background, which is simply ridiculous. I can barely read what is being written there. There's only like 3 lines of text per dialogue. There's no need for this font to be so small. And get this, when characters whisper or say something quietly, the text gets even smaller, all while it being on a transparent background, making it very difficult to even see, let alone decipher. Now, for some side quests, I tried to follow the quest line, I tried to read the story, but it was literally painful, even on my bigger screens and monitors, let alone on a device like Steam Deck. Though you don't want to play this on the Steam Deck, the performance are awful, but I was playing it on PC, on my TV, and on my monitor, and let me tell you, it was a pain to read. For side quests, I would just accept the side quest, and fortunately the game has a nice indicator of where you should go for your side quest, and I would follow the mark and complete my side quests that way without reading them for the most part, because the game clearly doesn't want me to read what it has to say. The dialogue boxes are not the only difficult to see aspect of Visions of Mana. Quest givers are almost invisible because they do have exclamation marks over their heads, but those exclamation marks are so tiny and get lost so easily in the overall environment and visuals and graphics that it's a real struggle to find them on the map, it's a real struggle to find them in-game at times. So no, I do not appreciate the way Visions of Mana's user interface has been designed. It has absolute and complete disregard for severely visually impaired gamers. I'm honestly grateful that both the main quests and side quests have clear indicators on the map and on the game screen as to where you need to go to complete them for the most part, because otherwise I would have had zero interest in completing any of these side quests. I don't like forced exploration in games. I like exploration, but when it's on my terms, and when side quests tell me where I should go, I find that very helpful and I'm very grateful for it. I don't need forced exploration. Still, exploring the world was a lot of fun, and one aspect of exploration that I really appreciated in Visions of Mana is the fact that it has somewhat of an old school approach to exploration or getting to some of these items. It may not seem apparent at first, the way they've placed some of these items or secret pickups or side quests and so forth require you to climb and jump through the environment in not so obvious spots. They're not indicated clearly like what you would see in, I don't know, Horizon Zero Dawn or the Uncharted games and so on. So there is a hint of old school style exploration while the game is still being helpful with map and on-screen hints on where you need to go. Honestly, completing side quests, completing side content in general, or exploring and trying to get to your location is going to be a breeze thanks to the wonderful fast travel system the game has. Now, because the world is so beautiful, I didn't always utilize this fast travel system, and I would often walk to my destinations while I fight on my way there or try to discover some items and so forth. Speaking of items, almost all items are clearly indicated on your map. However, that doesn't mean that they are always easy to spot or easy to notice or easy to get to. You know where they are, but getting to them is still up to you. And I really appreciate this. It actually made me want to gather pretty much all items that the game had to offer. And surprisingly enough, I almost got everything the game had because I was enjoying the fact that I knew where to go for these items, and then I just had to do a little bit of exploration when I was in the right spot to see the item and pick it up. So this is something I really appreciate. Visually impaired I may be, but I'm also an illustrator and an artist, and I can tell you that despite my disability, I can clearly see that the art direction in this game is astonishing. The artists clearly understood color theory and color combinations. In Visions of Mana, we often see the shadows or the darker areas having blue tint or being painted blue, which gives the game this very beautiful, almost ethereal look at times. The world has so many different regions, all with their own diverse look and atmosphere, and all this is complemented by very beautiful, vibrant colors, absolutely gorgeous lighting, very small, very intricate and beautiful details, as well as absolutely amazing music.
Hi.
Now, I already said that this was a very diverse world, and this is the case with both the overworld and with the dungeons you come across, explore, and fight through. And that's just amazing. So many games go for the most default and boring dungeons imaginable and somehow think that we still find them exciting and interesting. But no, Visions of Mana really does have amazing looking dungeons. These dungeons are full of color, full of all sorts of sights and sounds and experiences that you are genuinely going to enjoy. They're creative dungeons, and that's what makes the game stand out from most RPGs, from most JRPGs, because the developers were just not afraid to play with the dungeons and make them look and feel very fun and very creative while never being tedious. So when it comes to atmosphere, visuals and music, Visions of Mana is simply pure perfection. The game is pure beauty. And even if you can't follow the NPC dialogue, even if you can't read all the side quest dialogue, you're still going to enjoy this absolutely incredible world Visions of Mana has crafted.
It's lovely.
Yeah, I love sunrises, but there's something about a sunset at the end of the day.
I don't know. Sunsets feel a little like saying goodbye.